Have you ever asked someone for the name of a good attorney or a good accountant? You're asking the wrong question. I'm about to share with you the powerful truth behind hiring a good accountant, a good attorney, for that matter, a doctor, a property manager, you name the professional. And it's probably something you've never heard before. You see, my mentor taught this to me, his mentor taught it to him, but outside of those two people, I've never really heard anyone talk about this. But when you apply what I'm about to share with you, it can be revolutionary. And here it is. The people, accountant, attorney, doctor, contractor, property manager, you fill in the professional blank, the people you hire are only as good as you are. They're only as good as you are. What does that mean? It means that ultimately you're responsible for the effectiveness of that professional for what you hired them for. It is on you. You're the one that makes them good. And herein lies a paradox. So if you hired an accountant to help you with your taxes, you did so because you don't know all the IRS guidelines. You didn't go to school, you didn't get a CPA designation, or if you hired an attorney, you didn't pass the bar, you don't have a license to practice law, you're not an attorney. Or if it's a doctor, you didn't go to med school. So here I am telling you that the powerful truth behind hiring these people is that you are the one that make them good, but yet you don't know the specific discipline in which you hired them for. Exactly. And that is what I'm going to unpack right now. There are 3 steps to this. The very first step, and the most important one, is know your objective. You need to know why you are hiring this professional and what the ultimate goal is. What is the end result you're trying to obtain? So if you're hiring an accountant, is it to file your 2021 tax returns? Is it so that they can file those returns in such a way where you reduce your tax bill as much as legally possible, holding on to as much money as you possibly can? Or is it that you really need strategy for the future, for 2022, which we're now in, and you're now trying to figure out how you can reduce your taxable incomes because you think you're going to have a bigger year this year than last year? And in that case, you may not need a CPA or accountant. You might need a tax attorney, someone who can help you with strategy. You need to know your objective. When someone hires me as their real estate mentor, we have a very clear and simple objective, and that's to make $500,000 in net profits as quickly as possible with that person starting right where they're starting from and in their location, right there, right then. And so we know what our objective is. Know what your objective is anytime you hire a professional. If you go to a doctor and you're sick, what's your objective? It's to get well. So you can specifically and clearly communicate in your mind what the objective is, and that's going to help frame the rest of these 3 steps. Step 2 is to hire most qualified. Now you might say, well, Phil, that's what I meant when I asked that person if they knew of a good accountant. That's what I meant. I meant, like, which one was the most qualified for the situation? Well, you've got to be clear in your communications, and that's going to be part of step 3 as well. Most qualified is that professional that has a tremendous amount of experience in the exact objective that you're trying to accomplish. It saves you a lot of money in the long run because you're not having to pay extra legal fees or extra accounting fees for someone to research something when all you had to do is do the work on your end up front to find that which was most qualified. An example of an attorney would be an eviction attorney. If you look at the docket of eviction cases and you look at the names of the attorneys that filed those cases, you will notice in any jurisdiction, a county, or if you're in Louisiana parish or a borough, if you're in Alaska, you're going to see the same couple of names for the attorneys that are processing a lot of the eviction cases. Those are the most qualified. They do it every day. An example of an accountant that would be highly qualified to help you would be one that already owns real estate if you own real estate. They personally invest in real estate, and that, of course, is going to help you as well because whatever they do for themselves, they're going to be a lot more apt to be qualified for what you're doing. But it doesn't mean you work with an accountant that typically works with private equity funds that's buying 1,000-unit plus apartment buildings across the United States. That's not necessarily most qualified for your objective, especially if you only own a couple rental properties or you're trying to flip 2 houses this year. So you need to find that professional which is most qualified to meet your objective. Step 3 is where all of this comes together. This is where you are going to be good. So if they're only as good as you are, this is how you get good. It starts with clear and honest communication. So if it's an accountant, you're being very clear and honest in providing all of the documentation that they need. Or if it's an attorney, you're providing all the legal documents, all the correspondence with the opponent, and all the other details that they need to do their job. The number one way I've been able to shut down legal skirmishes, let's say with a seller, is that oftentimes that seller is dishonest with their attorney. And so that attorney sends over some letter to me and says, this person doesn't want to sell the property to you anymore and this contract is null and void because of blah, blah, blah. And then I send back my counter response, usually from my attorney, is so well articulated and it brings up evidence that their attorney did not know about. And so all of a sudden their attorney reads this information and they go, oh my gosh, my client's an idiot. My client lied to me. They lose their trust in the client and they say, you know what, you're on your own. I'm out. So be honest in your communication, but be clear as well. No ambiguity here, because if there is ambiguity, they can't do their job to the best of their ability. You've got to be clear in your objective and clear in all the information you provide. Because if you don't, then it's your fault. Then you're not being as good as you can be. So clear and honest communication. All right, the next thing is that you need to ask questions until you understand. So when things happen throughout the course of, let's say, a tax return being created or being an attorney working on a case, if you get to a point where you don't clearly understand what's going on, you need to ask and you need to continue to dig until you understand. You know that when tax returns are filed, the responsibility is still on you. The IRS does not care who the tax preparer is. They care who it is that's on that tax return. You need to understand and ask those questions. And if that professional is unwilling to explain it to you, even though you're paying them, then go get another one. You need to understand. You've hired them, so they need to be able to explain to you why they're doing things. And you need to understand it so well you could explain it to a spouse or somebody else what's happening and why. So ask questions until you have that understanding. But more than just that, challenge them. Challenge the status quo with, well, why are we doing it that way? Could we do it a different way? What about this? What about that? I was thinking about this. I was researching online here. What about these ideas? Because when you challenge them, you make them the best they can be. And this is part of what we mean by only as good as you are. This is where you're taking them to the next level by asking questions that are completely outside of typically, their box, what they've been looking at. And you want them to say phrases like this. Well, no one's ever asked me that before. Bam! That's excellent. That means you are challenging. You want to constantly be trying to think of ways in which you can get the most out of that situation, and you go back to that professional and say, how can we get this done? So your objective may adjust over time, and you're constantly asking questions to challenge them and to challenge what I call the status quo, which would be the standard, the traditional, this is how people always do it. You need to understand it, and then you need to continue to dive deeper. And I know what you're saying, but Phil, I'm not an accountant, I'm not an attorney, it's not my job. Well, it's your job to understand your objectives so well that you're constantly asking these professionals how to get there. And is there a different way to get there? Is there a better way to get there? Make sense? All right. So in addition to these, you need to hold them accountable. They need to be the ones to execute on that which you've hired them for. So hold them accountable. You don't have to be a jerk about it, and you can be reasonable about it. But I think this is a big problem with a lot of people that hire professionals, especially attorneys. They feel like it's a badge of honor to spend, thousands and thousands of dollars in legal fees, but they never held the attorney accountable, so the attorney just kept racking up fees, but nothing ever got accomplished. You've got to hold them accountable, because they'll charge you, right? But if you don't hold them accountable, then you're not going to get the best out of them. Everybody needs accountability. Even the smartest and the brightest and the most wonderful people in the world, they all need accountability. All right, and then lastly, pay quickly. Fast pay makes for good friends. So when I first started working with the electrician who I've now been working with almost 6 years, the HVAC contractor I'd been working with for a while had recommended this electrician reach out to me because he was starting his own business. He had been working for a big firm for a long time and he wanted to go out on his own. And he said, look, there's one thing about Phil you'll notice. He pays faster than anybody you'll ever work with. I mean, if you send him an invoice Monday through Friday, within a couple of hours, it'll always be paid. It's unbelievable. You've never seen like it. No other vendor I've ever worked with, my dad's ever worked with, and he's been in HVAC for 40-something years, he's never seen a client do this. He pays so fast. And that speaks volumes. When you pay fast for good people, they work hard for you. Fast pay makes for good friends. So that is how you be good. Clear in your communication. You ask questions until you understand the situation, but then you challenge them. You take them to the next level. You bring out the best in them, and then you hold them accountable, and you pay them quickly. And if you do this, now you can fulfill this concept that the people you hire are only as good as you are. All right, y'all. Well, I'm Phil Pustiowski with freedommentor.com. As I had mentioned earlier, I'm a real estate mentor and coach. I have trained many of the most successful real estate investors all across North America. I give away my book, How to Be a Real Estate Investor, away for free in these videos, so feel free to grab that. But if you'd like to work with me directly, if you'd like for me and my team to be your real estate mentor, then consider my apprentice program, where my team and I, we will transform you into a money-making machine. All right, well, thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions, comments, feel free to put those down below here, and I'll see you in the next video.